All right, we are live. We've got Sam with me here, and Sam, we've been talking on the podcast. You're a regular on the podcast, so a valued member of the panel every week. But I think it's come to pass over many, many weeks of and months of talking about Arsenal. Um, I'm more in the optimistic side of Arteta. Wanted to see the good and not the bad, although I can recognize the bad as well. And let's just have your. I'm not going to talk for you, so let's have your side of the story, Sam. How
Yeah,
you feel?
so
How you feel about the situation?
like you say, you're the more on the optimistic side. You think Arteta is likely the right appointment to take us forward, and of course that's your opinion. You're perfectly allowed to have that. Many other people share that opinion, um, and me and many other people we don't share that opinion. We don't think Arteta is the right man to take us forward, to put it as simply as possible. And you and me have been discussing backwards and forwards the different reasons why. We've been having little digs at each other, about the different little details here and there, and is that progress? Is that progress? What's this? What's that? And it's been really good. I think it's good to just sort of get everything laid out on each side, and I think it can be up to people to decide basically what they think. Put some evidence out there, put some of our thoughts out there, and see what side people go. Neither of us. I just think it's important to say that neither of us are like want Arteta out, like out of the club. I know you definitely don't. You don't. I know you'd like to see him succeed, of course. But for me, I just want to clarify that. I'm not like, Arteta out, I want him gone. I don't want him in my club. I'm not there. I'm not at that stage. But I just don't think, just to put it in simple terms, I don't think he is the right manager for us to take us to that level where we want to go, basically. And that's where I'm going to, within the next half an hour, we're going to discuss this. And I think I'm going to put some good points together to basically explain my side of it and why I think it is that way.
Yeah, I've got no detailed notes. I'm just going to fight my corner as well, and it's a discussion more than anything else. And
Yeah.
I phrased the podcast in the right way here for you, Sam. So it's not, like you said, it's not Arteta in, it's not Arteta out. I think during the course of our conversation, I will recognize where Arteta's gone wrong, and hopefully you might recognize the things that he's done right. And at the end of the 30 minutes, everybody can drop a comment in the video. Let us know what you think, and we'll take it from there. We're going to break it up into three sections. So let's start off with the first section. The three sections, Sam, will be the end of last season. I'm going to say culminating with a trophy at the end of the season. The first half of this season, we probably will agree to a large extent, horrendous. Not good football, not good results, and then obviously the second half of the season. Uh, Obviously, as a host, I'm going to try and phrase it as the 26th of December onwards, right?
You found that as a nice cutting off point, didn't you? There, that's
Yeah, nice cutting off point. So great to have people in chats here, but we're probably not going to dive in as much as possible. To the chats, it's just going to be me and you going at it, and the people in chat box can talk amongst themselves and or decide who's winning this conversation, or if it's a knockout decision or if it's a points decision. Sam, we'll see what happens. We'll take it in three sections. So you start off. Last season, Arteta comes in. Surprising choice by the club, but Mikel Arteta is hired for the job.
Yeah. So he was one of the. I believe he was one of the candidates when Emery got hired as well. Then they decided against hiring him. They went for Emery, and then when Emery left, then I think it seemed, in my opinion, of course, this is just speculation on my side. I don't think there is any really hard evidence for this, but I think then they've sort of figured out, they've gone for a candidate they already had from the last time, and I think they found it easier then to go to Arteta and hire Arteta. And I wasn't 100% against Arteta when he was appointed. I was a bit disappointed because, like many other people, I felt it was very strange, very unorthodox to hire someone who has no experience at a managerial level, at first team managerial level. He came from Manchester City, albeit with good credentials, but as an assistant manager. And I think anybody can realise that there's a big step between being an assistant manager and what that entails, and the duty and what you need to do, and what the tasks you have to do, and what kind of responsibility you have. As he was initially hired as our first team coach or head coach, and then eventually he was given the manager role, with all the fallout with the role mess and everything later on. But he was initially hired as our head coach. And I was excited because I was thinking, wow, okay, for them to hire this guy. I'm always thinking the best of Arsenal. That's the thing. I'm always thinking the best of the board, the people who do the recruitment. I'm always thinking the best, that they're doing their due diligence. They're making sure they're interviewing properly and looking into things in depth. And I'm thinking, okay, well, if they've hired Arteta, they must have a lot of faith. Yeah, that was it. A lot of faith in his ability to be able to do the job, even though he's never actually done a managerial job before. So I was thinking, okay, so if they've hired him, I'm going to give him a chance, even though I initially thought it was a very strange appointment, to be honest. And then he started off I think he started off very promising in the fact that we saw and heard, his ideas. He was very vocal, very clear. He was talking in a very clear and disciplined manner that we haven't really seen before. We're used to the so-called Colney crash, where everybody could just do what they want under Wenger, and it was just like come and do what you want type of atmosphere, under Wenger. And it seemed like Arteta was going to turn that around and say, listen, now we're gonna change things now and go in a different direction and add more discipline in here. We're going to actually put in some different rules, and we're going to go in a different direction. I think he was very heavily influenced by Pep Guardiola. His type of thinking and philosophy, and bringing that into the club, and that was very promising at the beginning. We thought, okay, maybe we can actually get rid of some of these clowns and some of these guys that we know are no good and not doing anything good for our club. They're not performing. They seem to be, messing around outside of the field, and all this mess on social media and everything. And it just seemed like he's going to come in and clear everything up. Be more of a disciplinarian and get things going in the right direction. And unfortunately, we saw, even though he had some very good press conferences and laid out some very good plans, we saw that he struggled to implement them. And that's one of my issues with him going forward in this discussion, is his lack of man management that we saw very early on, where he would treat people differently, like Xhaka compared to Guendouzi, the Ceballos situation, how he treated that, and came down a lot harder on certain players than he did on others, and sort of let other players get away with things that you thought maybe they shouldn't get away with. And it just seemed like he had a lack of consistency. So for me, man management is one of those issues. So that's my take on the first part of it, part of his tenure.
All right, so first part of his tenure is the end of last season. Did he do anything wrong for you in the end of last season? Because history will probably tell us he made the right decision with Guendouzi. Guendouzi has done nothing at Hertha Berlin to make us think that Arteta's made the wrong decision there.
Well, I would actually, in terms of his attitude, yes, I would say there are definitely issues there. But in terms of his ability, he's still a very, very capable football player, and very talented football player, and very highly regarded, and very much part of the France international setup. So, is there a way of him being able to maybe, bring him back like he did with, like Xhaka. I mean, he seemed to have no problem with all the disrepute Xhaka brought to the club. He seemed to have no issue with that. Gave him a second chance and a contract extension. And so this is the way I think he's treated people a bit differently. Even though you could say he's technically right in that Guendouzi does seem to have an attitude issue, but then what about the other players he's kept hold of? Like Xhaka, like Guendouzi, we've had Saliba's been put out on loan. He's never really had a chance, but that's another player with a potential disciplinary issue, isn't it? And it just he seems to treat certain players differently. But that when he first started, he started off promising, didn't he? On the pitch, the results looked quite good, didn't they, to start off with?
So I think, Sam, we're not privy to what goes on in training grounds. So Arteta's looking at the whole thing in unison, right? We see match day, and maybe we see some media stuff behind the scenes. He's obviously assessed Guendouzi and Xhaka in the entirety, and we don't see all of that, right? So maybe Xhaka is one of the best trainers. We hear stories about Granit Xhaka being one of the best trainers at the club, and Arteta's obviously pegged Guendouzi as not being one of the best trainers of the club, as well as his indiscipline on the field, and he's taken all of that in his entirety. That's how I would probably classify Xhaka compared to Guendouzi. And everything we've seen from Guendouzi has not shown us anything different than Arteta's feelings on him. You know what I mean?
I mean, you can argue that case. At the same time, I would say what Xhaka did was very serious, and many people would agree that he should really never really play for Arsenal again. It was that serious, but he was given a new chance, and again, and then even again later on, he did something terrible again, by physically, he throttled another player, didn't he? And we've seen that with Xhaka, he does have these temper issues, and he doesn't, he never takes any responsibility himself. He'll never say sorry, and he does. For me, he does have an attitude issue, but because he seems to, like you say, he trains well, and Xhaka likes what he does. He seems to be a bit of a leader on and off the pitch. It seems like he gets a bit of a pass, and to me, it's not really right, in my opinion. And he's also treated other players, I think unfairly as well. Especially younger players who come in and play well, do well. Mm-hmm. They'll get benched and dropped for no real obvious reason. And then we'll get Guendouzi with his. I know he had an issue in Dubai when they went to that training camp in Dubai. Had issues there, and like you say, there are maybe more things behind the scenes than we're privy to. I can definitely understand that could be the case. But but looking at what Xhaka's done, I still don't think it's right that Xhaka hasn't received the same level of disciplinary action.
And I agree with you in a lot of that as well. What we're seeing from Granit Xhaka is disciplinary issues that are continuing. We're seeing teams have an edge over him in terms of the mental aspect of the game. They're able to get under his skin. Guendouzi hasn't shown anything to Arsenal fans that we could get behind and say, listen, Arteta was wrong in terms of Guendouzi. He was involved in a flashpoint in our worst result last season, away to Brighton. And I think in many ways, what Arteta did there was the correct thing to steer the ship correctly toward the end of the season. Would you agree with that?
Of course, what he did should be handled as a disciplinary issue. It was wrong. It's something you should never do. And then again, it's something that Jack has done, and he hasn't. He didn't even get dropped. So apart from did he even get a red card? I can't remember now if he got a red card or not. But
against Burnley,
yeah. Well, did he get a red card for that? Yeah. So apart from the mandatory red card he had to be dropped for. He didn't get dropped for anything else. He didn't get any disciplinary action that we know of. The club didn't come out and announce any disciplinary action. Arteta didn't. So, it's for me, it just seems a bit unfair the way he treats Xhaka. Seems to have this golden hand around him. He plays every single game, no matter what. He's never rested. He's never rotated. He just seems to have this golden treatment. For me, it's not right. And other players have the same as well, like Aubameyang. There's issues around there as well. And but we're very focused on the disciplinary issues right now, aren't we? And for me, there are differences there you can see, even though we can say we don't know 100% what exactly is going on behind the scenes. Based on what we see, based on what I see and what I get out of it, to me, it looks quite unfair. And then to me, management is going to be one of the issues I put on Arteta.
I agree with you. There's inconsistencies there in the way he's dealt with a younger player in Guendouzi, and you have a more senior player. It does seem Arteta views players differently in terms of their age profile and their experience in the game. Moving on from that point, we agree in some aspects of that. The FA Cup win last season, where he did coach a lot of our bad players in a fashion that was able to secure an FA Cup using our talisman striker who was performing really, really well last season. He's got to get some credit points there, right?
And that is one of the areas where I do give Arteta a lot of credit, is the way he handled those games in the FA Cup. I think it's down to the formation and the tactics we played, that he decided to play that hybrid 3-4-3 formation that he decided to implement, because we started off quite poorly and we were looking shaky at the back, and then he changed the formation and the setup to that 3-4-3, the hybrid with the wing backs, the back three with the wing backs, and I gave and I still do give Arteta credit for doing that change and adapting, because that helped make us more solid at the back. It created a much better defensive foundation for us, and it meant we could then use that as a basis to counter attack, which worked effectively for us against teams who are very, very good at possession and very good at pressing us. So it worked out very well to play against teams like Liverpool, Manchester City and Chelsea, because they were teams who were pressing with possession, and they are then our setup then to counter attack them worked very well. We didn't create many chances, but then as you rightly point out, Aubameyang was in form. He was doing what we expected of him, and he was scoring on most of the chances he got back then. And he scored on those chances he got, and they won us games. And he won us, of course, as you know, the FA Cup final as well. And we didn't create many chances, but we scored on them, and that was great. And it was that tactic, that change Arteta brought in there to make us defensively more stable. I give him credit for that. That is one of the good things he did, and that became a foundation for us to move forward on.
So, Sam, leading on to that, just speak about our record against the, let's say, top six now. It's drastically, he's improved that very much so, right?
I would agree. And again, that comes down to the way we play. The way we play with, that more defensively, more stable now defensively. We work well on the counter attack. The way we're set up tactically plays better against the bigger teams, better than before. So yes, against the so-called top six, we have had better results, and that is true. Unfortunately, on the other side of the coin, the other side of the medal, we struggle against all the other teams who let us have the ball. And I remember saying that. I don't know if you can remember me saying that, but I remember saying that on one of our early Fan Circle podcasts here at the beginning of the season. I said our tactics are suited very well against the good teams, but not well against the small teams, because the teams that let us have the ball, we struggle. We don't really know what to do with it. That was when we went through that whole period of we just had no idea what we was doing in attack, which we went through for a long time.
Was that solely down to, we don't know what happened with Mesut Ozil? Was that solely down to freezing Ozil out, and was that a club decision, or do you think the manager at the time had a part to play in that?
I think it was Ozil was. He's one of those figures that he can be very. He can influence things in a bad way, and I think that's the way he was viewed. I think he was looked upon as a bad influence because he was lazy, he was a prima donna, and he's that type of player you don't want other players to sort of emulate or be affected by or influenced by. And I think he viewed that as an issue, and of course also tactically, because Ozil couldn't do what Arteta wanted, from him. His work rate was very poor. His press, he didn't really know how to press the way he wanted him to press, and statistically, he didn't do very well at all. The chances he was actually given by Arteta when he played, he didn't do well. He didn't play well. That's one of the things his fanboys forget is when he actually did have those chances, those 5-6 games he played. Those last 5-6 games he played for Arteta, he didn't play well at all. He was non-existent. So Arteta then thought, okay, then let's move on from this and bring in someone else.
So young players aside, Sam, I think we're sort of coming to the acknowledgement here that Arteta does treat senior players differently to younger players. Looking at the overall 18 months or whatever it is, has Arteta done the right thing in moving on the senior players? The right kind of senior players have been moved on, in my opinion. Mustafi, Ozil, in some cases, and these are players who have been shown to be poisonous within the dressing room. We're starting to see Schalke turn into a mess because Kolasinac and Mustafi are there as well. Has he made the right moves in terms of senior players? Maybe aside from Granit Xhaka aside, right?
He has. He's moved on all the players we identified as problems, either off-field issues or on-field issues, or both. Some of the players were not great in the dressing room and not great on the pitch either. And of course he did the right thing in moving them on. He did it too late. I think that's another issue. Him and the club did it too late. We had some of these players for far too long. They should have been moved on a lot earlier, and that is another criticism that should be levelled at both him and the club. He gave players extensions that he shouldn't have. That he found out later on that we knew weren't good enough, but he found out later on and decided to move on. But actually gave them another chance that proved to be wrong. And but he has done the right thing in getting those players out, but there's still more to go, right? That's the thing. We've still got more. It's not going to be done overnight. He's had he had 3 transfer windows now. He's going to have his 4th now, and this is going to be the biggest one, of course, not just for him, but for the club as a whole as well. For all the issues we know, we don't need to discuss that. But this is going to be a big transfer window. There's players that need to go, and there's players that need to come in.
So in wrapping up, we've got about 6 or 7 more minutes. Let's wrap things up a little bit. Talk about this season and the style of play. I will admit it was horrendous earlier part of this season up until, as I'm going to say, December 22nd when Emile Smith-Rowe was introduced into the team. Young players performing really, really well in the Europa League. Obviously, we had a weak group that we sailed through, 6 wins out of 6. Can't give them too much credit for doing that, but on my side, I will admit that there was too much hesitancy in bringing those younger players into the first team for the Premier League games. Sam.
I think it needs to be noted that these players were ready to go a lot earlier than when they were introduced. Smith-Rowe was actually fit in October. He got several games. I think he got 3 under-23 games and 3. He played a large portion in 3 Europa League games as well before he actually got a chance in the Premier League. And it is just, I think it's just a fact that he waited far too long to change things around. He gave Willian far too many chances. He gave the likes of underperforming Lacazette too many chances. There were just too many players who kept playing, game after game after game, who weren't performing, and we weren't doing anything in attack. Things just weren't clicking at all. And his reluctance to change things around hurt us for several games. And then when
losing games, we should never have lost games.
Yes,
Burnley at home.
And a lot of that is down to his team selection and sticking to that, and those tactics not working, and the players not liking the tactics as well. I mean, that's what happens when tactics. When players realise tactics aren't working, they don't perform very well. They don't really like to get into it, and that was an issue as well. And then he finally got forced, and this is an important issue. He got forced into making those changes through the suspension, injury, and also the COVID prevention protocols that were in place. He had to drop the likes of Willian. He had to drop certain players, and that let him introduce Smith Rowe and some of the younger players, Saka more, and that's when they started to click, and that's when things completely changed. And we were saying that for several games in a row before that happened, and that's what should have happened, and it just happened too late. And just in wrapping up from my side, I just want to make it clear on my side what it is with Arteta that I think is not good enough, and that is. It is those issues. It's the man management. It's the match management. In terms of he's all of a sudden he sets up wrong, like he did the last game again with Aubameyang outright, using Aubameyang at all. He shouldn't even be on the pitch. Players who play well get dropped for no reason. They're playing great, and then they just get dropped for no real reason, just for the sake of rotation. I don't think that's great for the players' development.
Could that be something, Sam, that we don't know? We're not privy to yet. It could be COVID related.
No, I don't think. I just think it's a matter of Arteta looking at the data and saying, "Oh, these guys need to play this much over this amount of time." He's looking at how much they're playing instead of how they're playing. And to me, that's
looking at it too mechanically.
Too data driven. Too much data into it instead of actually what they're doing on the pitch in terms of form and things like that. And the last thing is the match management. He is not good enough yet to react to other teams' tactical changes, and he's slow with substitutions, and he often makes the wrong substitutions. Yeah. So it's that combination of man management and match or game management for me that's showing his lack of ability, his lack of experience, and that for me is why Arteta is at the moment he's here. And we need a manager who's up here. We need someone with more experience and more ability in those areas to take us where we want to go, in my opinion.
I believe the club has taken the attitude, we're going to go with a young coach because this is what they do this with the LA Rams. They have a young coach in place there as well. It's a model that various institutions want to implement. I think they believe in the potential, of Arteta in the future. I believe personally, if you win a trophy in your first season, you've got something about you. I will agree with you. There is major man management needed. He needs to learn a lot this season. I think he's learning along with the team as well. In some ways, the team is probably more experienced and more advanced than he is in his profession, obviously. And I think that but I do believe, Sam, that the players are behind him. Do you get a sense that the players are still behind him and believe in him?
I'm actually gonna say, for the most part, I think there's an issue there with the way we're playing, where we're so slow and lethargic, and we take so long.
Isn't that down to the players we have, though?
The players, that's the thing. If they were motivated and ready to go, and they wanted to get things done, they would start differently. I think they've got issues with the way we're set up, the way we're playing. I think they've got some issues with what's going on, to be honest. I don't know if they're there 100% for what's going on, if they buy the whole thing 100%, to be honest. And yeah, there are some players, of course, we need to improve on who aren't quite good enough, and we do need to move them on. But this whole, we've been through this. It's a system issue where you can't keep playing like that and just say it's just down to the players, because in certain games they're up for it. In certain games, the bigger games, they come out 100%. So they've got it in them. It's just
we definitely just talked about that in the previous podcast about the Europa League. We play down to lesser opposition, and we're able to get up for bigger opposition. That is a motivational aspect. I think in closing, and I think Sam, on Thursday night we can open this up to a larger discussion. We'll bring Gary, Tony, and Stan, and everyone else into the conversation. I think there's lots of meat left on the bone here for us to talk about. But in conclusion, let me just say I think Arteta is a great coach. I just don't think he's a very good manager. Do you think that would be a fair way to phrase it?
I would say he's definitely more of a coach than a manager. Yes, I think he's more good at maybe motivating players on the training field. Getting more out of training and more that behind the scenes stuff, which apparently he did very, very well at Manchester City. But now being in the forefront, having the accountability, the responsibility, the tactics are down to you. Everything that happens during a match is down to you. The man management, the game management, what happens when, all the tweaks, all the changes that need to be done. That is the difference between top level and mediocre. Is all those changes that happen during the game and how you motivate the players, how you set up for the game. All of that is the difference between top and mediocre. And at the moment, we're getting mediocre from Arteta, unfortunately, because he just doesn't have the experience. He hasn't done it before. And yes, he might get there in a few years. I definitely see there's potential there with him. I think he wants to get there. It's just I don't think we should be the club that he does his internship and his training wheels with. And we should have someone in who could already do what he is learning to do. That is my whole point. Yes, the FA Cup. Sorry, just to finish, the FA Cup was a great achievement. We all know the FA Cup's a great trophy for the club. But at the end of the day, it was three good matches. Yes, he has to get credit for that. But at the end of the day, that was 3 good matches against 3 good teams. Yes, but what's happened the rest of the time since? The league has completely fallen off. We're nowhere in the league. He'd been the FA Cup that he won in January. I know we disagree on why, but I just think it was a complete poor decision to bin the FA Cup already in January. And now all we've got to do now, I mean, the only hope we have left now is the Europa League. That's the only chance we've got of getting something done. Or else the season's a very poor season, and that has to land at the feet of Arteta.
Yeah, and that, strangely enough, another cup competition. So we seem to be a cup team, and the way we're being coached and the way we're being managed leaves a lot to be desired yet. We need to get up for these bigger games. Like I said, Sam, I think we'll open this up to Thursday night, bring a few more characters in here that can beat me up a little bit more. But listen, I want everyone to drop a comment. I couldn't show your comments in the chat box. This is a quick video. I got to get out of here. But drop your comments on the video down below. I will respond. Sam will respond also in the comments section. If there's a winner or a loser, just let us know. It's not about winning or losing. We both want Arsenal to win at the end of the day. And it's not, like I said, it's not about Arteta in, Arteta out. And let's open it up on Thursday night. We'll get a little bit more into it. And we'll have more time to do that as well, Sam. But thanks for the discussion.
Yeah, thanks.
And to be continued, because there is a Europa League going on, and we'll see what happens. I say that a lot. We'll see what happens. But with Arsenal, you have to really feel that way about it. You know what I mean?
Cheers. Thanks a lot, guys.
If you feel I haven't said too much, come back on Thursday and I'll say a little bit more. Until then, we're out of here. Thanks everyone for watching, and be nice to me in the chat, in the comment section. See ya.
Cheers, guys.
Thanks, Sam.